down and pray. You better get down and pray. You better pray for forgiveness. You better get down and pray for all your dirty business. You better get down upon your knees. Beg the Lord, please, please, please. You better get down and pray. If you think there ain't nobody and it's only just you and me, that's the first time in a long time, honey.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Session 3 of the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. My name is Randy Henderson, and I am one of the Black Feminist Reading Circle members of this online group. This session runs from January 20th until June 2nd and includes 2 week-long breaks. Our democratically selected reading material is Harriet A. Washington's book, Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. Our book group meets each Tuesday evening from 6:30 to 8 on the Google Plus Hangouts on Air platform. You may find the Global Black Feminist Reader Circle on Google Plus, YouTube, and Facebook, and always feel free to join us in reading our story together.
Welcome everyone to the Global Black Feminist Reading Circle. This is session 3, meaning the third book that we're reading, and meeting 8. Our text is Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present. And tonight we are focused on Chapter 7, A Notoriously Syphilis-Soaked Race, What Really Happened at Tuskegee. My name is Michelle Odom. I am the co-host of the Reading Circle and tonight's moderator.
Hi everyone, my name is Randy. I am watching from Atlanta, and I co-moderate with Michelle. I'm also at work, so he's all this.
Good evening, everyone. I am Georgette Moses. I'm participating from Columbia, South Carolina, and I'm so happy to be here.
I'm Kim Brandon, and I'm joining everyone from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm grateful that we're having these discussions. Happy about it? I don't know, but I just think it's necessary.
Good evening. My name is Vanita Walker, and I'm joining you from Connecticut. Welcome.
I'm Joel Jones from South Carolina. How's everybody doing?
Between 1932 and 1972, 399 Black men were enrolled and monitored in a study on the progression of untreated syphilis, a known killer, without their knowledge or consent. A control group of 200 uninfected men were also added to the population of subjects. Author Harriet A. Washington reveals in Chapter 7, A Notoriously Syphilis-Soaked Race, What Really Happened at Tuskegee. Details about the actors, motives, and actions of those who designed and carried out this well-publicized example of medical violence. By 1955, nearly 1/3 of the autopsied men had died directly of syphilis, and many of the survivors were suffering its deadliest complications, we learn. And further, 40 wives were infected and at least 19 children were born with syphilitic birth defects. Washington begins with an examination of the oppressive conditions among African Americans in Macon County, Alabama, when the Depression-era study was started, and delivers readers to the day in 1997 when President Bill Clinton apologized to the few living subjects whose lives had been forever harmed by intentional acts of the U.S. government. Along the way, she reveals details of her own original research with living members of the ad hoc panel who ultimately ended the study, places the study in the context of other and subsequent medical abuse of African Americans, offers some conclusions about the study's meaning and place in American history and race relations, considers its impact on current research practices, and shares her perceptions of the contributions of the Tuskegee Syphilis Study to fears Blacks carry about the healthcare system and its impact on the collective health of African Americans.
The government of the United States of America hunted these 600 black men for 40 years, anxiously awaiting their demise so that their bodies might be dissected and used to learn more about the progression of untreated syphilis. Everywhere they went, everything they did, every breath they took was caught by the ever-present watchful eye and long arm of Uncle Sam. This in the days before high technology. 7 presidents of the United States, Herbert Hoover, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Harry S. Truman, Dwight D. Eisenhower, John F. Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, and Richard Nixon came and went as the study raged on. Question number 2. Did you realize the government keeps ordinary citizens under this level of surveillance? Question 3. Are you aware of any other times law-abiding African American citizens have been surveilled at this level, and if so, what were the circumstances? Question 4. If one of these brothers had told you in, say, 1955 that he was being tracked by the government and his actions thwarted, do you think you would have believed him? Why or why not? Might you have considered him a paranoid conspiracy theorist? Question number 5. If you were the wife or lover of one of these men and he told you he was being treated for VD, but you kept being reinfected over and over again, would you have believed him? Would you have stayed with him? Question 6. At least 19 children who were fathered by the black male subjects of the Tuskegee Syphilis Study by 1955 were born with birth defects. Did the government owe a debt to them, in your opinion? Why or why not? And question 7. There is no mention of it in the text, but do you imagine those children were ever properly compensated by the U.S. government for the defects they were forced to live with?
Thanks, Georgette.
Well,
Wow.
You want to jump in, Vanita?
yeah, girl.
Go ahead.
I know you've got some excess energy you got to let loose.
Yeah, I take it all for this evening.
All right.
Did you realize the government keeps ordinary citizens under this level of surveillance? Yes, they're probably looking at us right now.
Indeed.
Are you aware of any other times?
That's why I did my hair.
Like, look at Georgia, she all pretty. Look at us, right? So we gotta make sure they have something good to look at. Yeah, there's many times, and since I've been alive, that I believe that, and I know that a lot of Afro Americans have been under surveillance. Men have been. Anyone that fought for their rights or fought for our rights was under 24-hour surveillance. From Malcolm X to Martin Luther King to Stokely Carmichael, you can name 195 of them. So yes, all of them were under surveillance, 24 hours a day, and some of them even showed up dead. That's how much under surveillance they were. So that I do agree with. And if someone told me that they were under surveillance that closely in 1955, had I been around, yes, I would have believed them. Taking into account that we all know, and we just went through 8 presidents, that no one really gives a damn. We all know that in 1955, we were still walking the other side of the street, drinking out of separate water fountains. Schools have said, why would you even question that? You know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't that be ployable? You know, so yes, I would believe that. Now, the wife of the gentleman that had VD, I guess we were born at a different time. Because he would have been on his own anyway.
Before or after?
Being reinfected back and forth. And no, I wouldn't have to worry about that. Even if it killed me, it would be a one-shot deal. So I don't know where Michelle got that question. And why would she put that on? What? No, no. I mean, that makes sense. That question's crazy as hell. No, he'd have been on his own anyway. Okay. He couldn't depend on Vanita. I wouldn't have been his girl. I said, boy down.
This was an era when women stood by their men to death do us part.
I don't know what's up with them. I don't know what, I know that's what they did. That's why I was not born in that era. Because he would have been on his own. Okay? My grandmother, Nana, she was the rebel. What's the cause? Believe me, he would have been on his own with my grandmother. Oh, my great-grandmother, he would have been on his own. So, no, that's crazy. No, I wouldn't even been reinfected. No, I wouldn't even thought about it twice because he was in. Now,
there wasn't the big HIV scare. People weren't necessarily trying to use condoms all the time.
But you know, your husband, if he bringing home a venereal disease, that did say VD, didn't it? Did I read VD?
Yeah.
Yeah, VD.
Okay, that stands for venereal disease. Whether it's gonorrhea, syphilis, and maybe, that means, unless you gave it to him, that he been barking up another tree. Now, I know back then women are a little different and they had to depend on the man to take care of 15, 20 kids they had. But let me tell you right now, it wouldn't have worked with Vanita. Even if he stayed on the same roof to take care of 15, 5, 8 kids that we had. He wouldn't have been up in my bedroom, so we wouldn't have been infected back and forth.
But if he told you that he was in a treatment program, getting treatment.
I don't care. His treatment has nothing to do with me. I need to worry about my own damn treatment. I don't care about his treatment. I don't care if he get treated, period.
Vanita done kicked him to the curb.
I'm not trying to find out. I'm very serious about that. Whether he's treated or not would not have been. I wouldn't even ask them. I wouldn't even care if you treated. I'm too busy trying to learn about treated. So it wouldn't have been a reinfestation, and I don't want to hear all that bullshit. Excuse the expression. I don't care if you're treated. So I wouldn't have been that wife to stand by your man. No. Case closed.
Okay.
Y'all y'all laughing, but y'all, I'm very serious about that. I'm very serious. It wouldn't have been my business whether he's cheated or not. He was dead, I wouldn't have known. And wouldn't have cared. He had VD. VD. Brought it home. To the house.
I know, but that that question came to me, you know, when I really started thinking about what was happening in the personal lives of these men. You know, how did it impact their families, their relationships, their ability to keep a girlfriend, you know?
Well, apparently, it didn't impact them too much because the wives were still there. Okay, so it didn't impact the wife.
Some of them, you know, we hear about 40 wives, but there were, you know, 600, well,
you know, 40 wives is 40 too many. So 40 would have been enough to me out of 10,000. 40 of them stuck around. 40 of them
infected
by these men. So,
yeah.
I mean, you know, that's not a good question for me because I could care less.
Yeah.
No, I don't have any empathy for him whatsoever. And 40 women did stick around. That's why we had 19 children born with defects. Now, maybe they were pregnant before their husband had syphilis. And they might have got pregnant in between them or after them. But the point is that 40 of them were around. So 40 of them stuck around.
And I think after, you know, once syphilis goes into some latent stage, that's the long period of it. I don't know if you can actually infect people during that period. I don't know.
I'm not a syphilis expert. I just know if my husband came home with any type of venereal disease, he's on his own. Period.
Okay, thank you, Vanita. Kim or Georgette, do you want to touch on any of those questions?
I forget most of the questions at this point. I think that I didn't know that there was a non-sexual transmission of venereal diseases or syphilis.
Congenital.
Yeah, Miss Washington touched on. So that gave me pause because if you are a sharecropper and you're doing that labor that, you know, you may have open wounds on your fingers from picking cotton. You may have open wounds everywhere. So if I just picked the same bush that you picked, it just seemed like it was this melting pot of how would you possibly stay healthy? I think the ones that stayed healthy were the lucky ones.
Right,
you know?
right.
And I was talking to my brother this morning because I don't understand my whole family's history, and I'm learning more about that. But I do remember when I met my father's mother, she was already blind from syphilis. And so she put him out.
There you go.
So there you go. But at the same time, you can kind of see that when you ask about what the country should do for kids who were born with any type of being somewhat deformed, I think that the emotional deformity is one thing, but the emotional deformity is a whole nother thing for those families. Because it was called the dirty blood. So if you're under this, it's like being in prison. I think it was probably worse than being a leper.
Yeah.
If people found out that you had this disease.
Yeah.
And you thinking that you're treating it on the side when it's not being treated.
Right.
So it's just so much comes up from this particular chapter that it was good reading it, but it was a hard read.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. When I was reading it, and then Michelle, your question about would we have considered these people or a person a paranoid conspiracy theorist? Well, that made me think about a video I had watched recently about a CIA doctor who admitted that the government since 1962 had been experimenting on minority populations with directed satellite energy weaponry.
Mm.
So that's starting to come out. And these are people who, you see them on after they shot up somebody.
Right,
And
right.
then we say, oh, well, he had mental issues, but
Mm.
what doctors was he seeing? And, was he in the military? And there are some telltale signs, just like these gentlemen went through. You go to see the doctors, but the psychiatrists are already in on the game, just like the black doctors in this study were. So you go to find help, and they're still telling you you're crazy, but they know you're in the program. You're marked. And then the surveillance now is at such a high level, they can turn your cell phone on and listen to you. And every time you update an app, it's always asking for more permissions. Why does a map program or a dictionary program need access to my photo camera and my microphone? Okay, we have to pay attention to these small things because it seems innocuous on the surface, but hey, they've made us comfortable, like they made these gentlemen comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but
That's right.
bad things are happening. Bad things are happening to us, and they know we are easily lulled into a state of apathy because it's happening to somebody over there, and it hasn't happened to me, and I can deny it, that, it's real. So they can keep getting away with all their stuff until it comes out later because somebody sued the pants off of them, and now there was a whistleblower who didn't make it to jail because they are jailing whistleblowers. And
Mm-hmm.
it finally comes out, and then you say, "Oh, so and so wasn't crazy. They really were, having these issues, and it was because the government did something to them." So,
Absolutely.
and the government needs to provide reparations for these people, but they won't. They'll never do it completely because who was it? Didn't Bush put a cap on medical malpractice or whatever it suits? He put a cap on it.
Oh,
So
did he?
the lawyer is going to take most of whatever you get.
Mm-hmm.
By the time the people who are actually hurt get some money, they just have enough to pay the rent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, that's no deterrent because the corporation or the government's already factored in how much they have to pay the lawyer if they lose or if they win. So, I don't know.
You know, I was just thinking when she mentioned the black physicians, um, that's what made the story even more sadder. Other
Mhm.
than Eugene Rivers, I think her name was. It was very sad.
Eunice.
Eunice, I'm sorry, Eunice Rivers. It's very sad that the black doctors were also in with this conspiracy.
Mhm.
When Michelle and I were talking about a bottom. We talked about that last week. I think you remember the people having a bottom. How low will you go?
Mm-hmm.
Or were they very well could have been those mulatto doctors that were the highfalutin Negroes. You know the type that mulatto. I mean, a lot of things start running through your head. You know what I'm saying? When you think about these things, where those hybrid Negroes, so they call them. They might have been passing, you think about these things. You're already a physician. What did they gain from that?
Right.
I don't want to hear fear. I'm tired
Well,
of hearing.
however much melanin they had enough that they were trusted
Yes.
by the residents in the local area, and it is precisely that trust that the government banked on and capitalized on. So, I mean, it's one of the, I think, hardest uh, lessons for African Americans or Black people to learn. But this chapter is a good illustration where virtually all of the heroes in this story are white, and a lot of the villains are white as well, but there aren't any black heroes that come through strongly. I mean, black people, you can't even say it's that we just didn't know about it. We were barred from the AMA. It's not that, because the black doctors and nurses that participated in the study, they knew about it. So it's the thing that I think is so hard for us to learn is, just because somebody shares a skin tone with us does not necessarily make them our friend. And just because someone's skin tone differs from ours does not necessarily make them our enemy. This woman now, Loretta Lynch, that is being held up, but who has strong support on both sides of the aisle to become the next Attorney General, she looks like us. But there's a very interesting article. You see black people of every stripe supporting her and arguing about how long it's taking for the confirmation to play out. But there's a very interesting article by Black Agenda Report that really goes into her history as a Wall Street champion, comparing her to Condoleezza Rice. So, which I encourage everyone to look up. So, I think that this is really just one example. In fact, Harriet Washington refers to Eunice Rivers, Nurse Eunice Rivers, who is the black woman who tracked them in for most of the years of the study, because her job was to not lose track of them. Her job was to make sure that the men showed up for their autopsy. So she had to know where they were at all times. And so she would go to their homes and offer them a ride to their medical appointments and give them a couple of $1 or $2. And, she was a part of their community, someone they considered a friend. And she may not have clearly understood what she was doing. I'm not so sure about that, Vanita. I mean, maybe she did, but maybe she didn't, because I'm allowing that people of that generation did not question things to the extent that we do.
Some did. There were a lot of
some did, but a lot didn't.
Yeah. Some did, but a lot didn't. But there were a lot of educated people, and there were a lot of people that asked questions that weren't educated. Had nothing to do with anything. I don't believe that she was totally oblivious.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I really do believe that she had a crappy job before, although, as we discussed that, Michelle, she had a paycheck. I think that she saw a better opportunity for herself, and it was at the expense of these black men. She did that for 25 years. How blind can a person be? You don't know nothing. Even if initially you're not aware something is wrong with this. 25 years of it?
I know.
Now, bear in mind, she's a nurse, so we know that she's capable of learning and seeing and hearing and thinking. I will not make an excuse for that. I hope the devil and all his family and friends are dancing on her chest as she lays 6 feet under. That's pathetic. Absolutely. And I'm tired of making excuses. Well, this, well, that. 25 years? You didn't question anything? All right. Let's say these other folks did. You didn't question anything. All that, befriending them and that teeth showing thing that you did, no conversations came up during any of that time that you befriended them with these people having any reservations about what's going on. No, I don't believe it for a minute. I believe that as black folks have done many times, and white folks and all kinds of folks, she was looking out for her own best interests. And if anything, she might have turned a blind eye so that she could have the courage to do what she was doing for 25 years.
I know.
If you ever think hard, honey, how we got here today, you may find it's not funny. You better get down and pray. Well, you better get down and pray. You better pray for forgiveness. You better get down and pray all for your dirty business. You better get down upon your knees and beg the Lord, please, please, please. You better get down. You better get